What's going on, guys? Hit pause here with a pretty quick tip on setting up a basic material for, I would say, a pretty wide range of surfaces. What we got here is basically something that is semi-generic, that gives us the basic controls that we need over the more standard types of surfaces. You know, like if you just have something that just needs a diffuse and a normal and just some values for roughness and metallic and things like that, this is perfect. So what this basically has is the ability to control the U and the V tiling. Okay, so you could stretch it in some direction if you wanted to. Now remember, we're making material instance constants out of these. So to do that, all you got to do is just get a scalar parameter for U, scalar parameter for V, append them together so they become a vector 2, which would be X and Y, multiply that by just a standard texture coordinate set to 1, okay, don't change this, and then you can pipe that into all of your actual textures here. Okay, now diffuse, I've added the ability to desaturate it just in case you want it, right? And that just pipes straight to base color. For metallic, in this case I'm just giving it a straight up value because every once in a while I'll have a material that actually has a metallic channel, meaning like it's, you know, like the G channel of a you know, a different texture or something like that. But that for me is a little bit of a more of a special case. It's more for like weapons and things like that. Out in the normal world now, I'm not saying that you can't use this. If you find that your material has a lot of requirements for, you know, textures to be used for the metallic channel, then go ahead and set yourself up something right here, right? But what I've done is given myself a static switch here, which is actually a static switch parameter. So if you just type switch, you want static switch parameter. Okay, so that way you can actually adjust. You know, this is not something that can be swapped in real time like in a dynamic material instance, but this is something that can be set on the material like a standard just static material instance constant that you just doing this is just for ease of like workflow to make things go faster, and it does actually kind of help on the computation times for mostly for, I think, for compiling the shaders and stuff like that. I don't really know what it saves during runtime to use a material instance constant. In fact, I think in some cases, if your material is super simple, literally just a diffuse texture and you're not changing anything else, I would just suggest just making a material for that, because that's as simple as it gets. I wouldn't necessarily add all of these parameters to just something that simple. Again, this isn't something that I'm trying to use across my entire game or anything like that. It's just a particular basic type of material that has the controls. So diffuse has the ability to desaturate. Roughness has the ability to say, hey, do I want to use the alpha for roughness? If it's true, I take the alpha channel from my diffuse texture and I still give myself the ability to adjust it, right? So I multiply that by a roughness power. Say this is coming out and it's way too strong, it's not strong enough, there's something silly about it that I don't like, I can still control that here, and if this roughness is exactly what I want, then I just need to change this to 1. That's it. Okay, so the same thing with specular. So for specular, I'm saying, do I use a separate specular texture? If not, I'm just going to use a parameter. If I am, I'm still going to once again give myself the ability to power it up and power it down should I feel the need. And that goes to specular. Normal map, basically saying, do I have a normal texture? Because like, say like a metal, like a perfectly smooth aluminum or something like that, not a brush metal or anything like that, you just want to have no normal map whatsoever, and you don't want to create a blank normal texture. We'll just use these values here, 0.5, 0.5, and 1, and that is essentially a flat normal map color there. Okay, so a blank normal map is basically that color there. So if it's true, we use a normal map. If it's false, we use we use the parameter. Okay. Now what you could do, if you wanted to, and I'll actually go ahead and do this, I'm going to say normal strength. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to multiply this by that. So we're going to give ourselves the ability to have a normal strength. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold 2 here, and we're going to give ourselves 1 and 1. Okay. And then what we need to do is we need to append this so it becomes a vector 3. Don't know why everything disappeared like that. It's been happening in the later versions. I'm on 4.7 preview 2, by the way. higher values, lower strength. Okay, so this would default to 1. Now if this normal map is too powerful, right, if you feel that this normal map is too powerful, you can see right here it's got a certain power. If I change this to like 4 and let that do its little compilation, you can see I'm almost wiped it out. So I've powered it down like a lot. Now if you go below 1, say like 0.01 or something, you end up with an extremely strong normal map. Okay, so this is a way to power the normal map up and down, and leave your defaults at 1. Okay, so we have the ability to adjust normal strength. And again, if we don't have a normal texture, we just want to use a blank thing here, because here's the thing, we have to pipe into normal map, right? If you keep this empty, you don't have a normal map. But if you pipe in this value here, you essentially don't have a normal map either. Okay, it's a blank texture. Roughness is, again, just use the alpha, and that's it. That's the whole thing. And like I said, this lets you create an extremely wide variety of surfaces, especially given that you are piping in, you know, 3 different textures here. Like I said, if you have a particular material that is going to take whenever I create a full material, meaning that I have maps for diffuse, metallic, specular, roughness, all of those things, I create 3 textures. I create a diffuse texture at 24 bits, it's just RGB, no alpha. I create a material texture, which I name as whatever the name is, _M. And what I do there is the red channel is metallic, the green channel is roughness, and the blue channel would be like specular, or maybe emissive, or ambient occlusion, or whatever. Usually ambient occlusion. Okay? And so I have like an _M texture. Now if you find that you're using that everywhere, go ahead and say add a parameter, you know, add a texture and call that your material texture, right? Because this is your base color. This is part of material, right? This is part of what's defining the material surface. This is defining the bumpiness of the surface, right? The texture of the surface. This is the color. This is part of the material. These 3 things here, metallic, specular, and roughness, and I would say ambient occlusion, are part of the material. Now the thing about specular is, in the PBR format, you got to understand that the specular channel really contributes very, very little these days. It doesn't have a lot to it. And I believe, I can't remember, but I believe the default value is just set to 5. Roughness basically kind of, I don't know the math, but the way that it feels and the way that it looks is that roughness pretty much is kind of just replaced specular in this case. Okay, so when you kick the roughness down, you can adjust the specular to be hotter and dimmer, but you'll find that if you have a 1 roughness and a 0 metallic, then no matter what you put in specular, it doesn't do anything. But if you have if you start kicking up some metallic that's higher and you start lowering the roughness, and now you can kick in specular. It's kind of a weird balance there. So basically that's why I just did this, just give myself the ability. It's still, I still have the controls for the most part. I'm just gonna keep this at actually false, okay, and just go from there. Now this, if you have put specular into here, into your alpha channel here, always, and you always do that, go ahead and just kick this to here and don't even worry about adding a specular texture parameter. It's all based on what you guys want to do. And there's nothing stopping you from saying, hey, I'm not going to use this material for everything, right? As there's still a bunch of things that I need to make. If you look, I got materials here. I mean, I still got a bunch of other materials. I just have this basic master that I can use to fill in areas where I know for a fact that things are just, they're going to fit right into this basic format. Okay, this is literally a basic shader, but with some controls. And I personally like to have desaturation just in case I want to be able to adjust these things here. If you wanted to too, you could add a multiplier to a vector 3 parameter that lets you alter the color. You can have like a color multiplier, and you can do color multipliers here. Sometimes you may want to use the diffuse texture as your specular, but the thing is specular here, I don't know if specular takes a color. like in UDK, you can actually tell the specular to be like a particular color. I'm trying to see if there's anything I have here that actually is using a colored specular map. I think this gold is here. This you can see that the specular is actually yellow. Now I'm not entirely sure if we can do that in UE4. I'd have to run some experiments. But what I'm doing right now personally is I'm recreating this because this is UDK. I'm taking this map and I'm putting this into UE4. So the idea is I'm going to recreate this entire map in UE4 and do everything that I can to basically just get R.A.T.S started for the most part. Now there's going to be some really awesome things that are going to happen in UE4. Number one, all of these metallic surfaces that look really dull and kind of just dumpy in UDK, even these over here, these golds, they're all going to brighten up real nice, and they're going to actually reflect the real world, meaning that they'll even see the characters and the effects going on, which is nice. This window is going to be the same thing. It's going to be a screen space reflection. It's actually, right now I just used a cube map, okay, so it doesn't even actually really truly line up. It's not too bad, but it doesn't truly line up, and you can see that like all the planes and stuff, they're all missing because I generated this cube map like ages ago. So back to UE4, one of the other sweet things that's going to happen in here is, and I'm just using it now as a test. I don't think it's perfect or anything like that, but we actually have, as you can see here, I got dynamic global illumination going on. I just wanted to try it, see if it would really work well. And you know what? It ain't that bad. It really ain't that bad. It bleeds until you get close. Okay, it has kind of a issue with that. But what you gotta understand is that's really far away. Like if I play this as the UE4 character, like this room's big, you know, so that's actually far away. And unfortunately, it doesn't actually work on point lights. Like point lights don't affect it. So as you can see, like it actually kind of feels like it does a little bit, but it doesn't. It's confirmed that it doesn't actually work on the point lights or anything like that. So this is pretty new for me. I hadn't actually started my real game project yet. But if I'm going to do Kickstarter and I'm going to try to get funding to port over to UE4, then I basically need to display what UE4 is going to bring to the table, right? Otherwise it's like, well, you know, why are you even bothering doing this? The main reason that I'm bothering doing this, taking everything to UE4, is because I want to, I really want the advanced AI stuff. That's the main thing, because I really wanted a strong single player component to the game. And one of the things that I could do in UDK was I could, it's not that I couldn't, but when I originally envisioned the game, every drawer here could be opened, the door could be opened, it would actually lead to the rest of the game, like all these other rooms would be here, but in UDK it's really hard to get past that Scooby-Doo rendering style, which is, if you remember Scooby-Doo, it was like animated objects over painted backgrounds. So it was really obvious when a door was about to open. You could quite clearly tell when something was about to move or was going to move or be animated, because it was flat colored and brighter than the background. The backgrounds were all painted and looking nice, had a bunch of tones in them, you know, like the graveyards and stuff like that, you could tell. But then all of a sudden, one of the tombstones is just totally flat, gray, and bright. And that's the tombstone that tilts over as the ghost comes out, you know? So I was getting that all over the place in UDK because, number one, the dynamic lighting, don't get me wrong, I think that this actually looks really good. This is baked lighting. And to be honest, what I'm going to get in UE4, aside from some of the metallic effects, is not going to be all that different if I were to bake lighting. but I couldn't go with a fully dynamic lighting system because, like I said, all my static objects were just a totally different tone than everything else. This door was just glowing white, and there was like nothing I could do about it. And I really didn't want to go through the hassle of an entire game's worth of creating just, you know, like 5 different versions of every material just to fit it into each different lighting condition. It turned into a pretty steady nightmare. So what I ended up doing in UDK was just going static on everything, literally just keeping everything static. So you can't open the drawers, you can't, you know, these were all supposed to open. These are actually physics objects. You know, the balls and stuff like that, those are all set to physics. You can see they're floating. They do drop when the map starts. But I really wanted, and the very first thing that I did when I made the game was, if you came up and you shot these drawers, they all slid open. So you could open all the drawers, open the door, you could open the window, you could actually get outside. I had the whole backyard was actually out here in this map. So I cut all that out because UDK just didn't handle the dynamic lighting all that well, and the only way I could get it to handle it was to turn every object in the entire game, literally everything, into an interbacter, which then the lighting was consistent across the board, but to be honest, that's just not performance friendly. It was lagging, you know. The one thing that UDK does have that UE4 doesn't have, which I actually like, is lighting channels. It's a completely different renderer, but the reason for that is because we're using a specular gloss system, and with a specular gloss system, the materials don't behave consistently across the same, like a uniform lighting condition. You can still get a crazy amount of weird variation in your materials based on what you do with the materials. But in UE4, using PBR, metallic and roughness, whatever the lighting conditions are is going to basically be uniform, and the materials will be uniform as well. So I'll get a much more realistic result using dynamic lighting, and I'm hoping that I can get, like, I can actually build the whole map. And I would probably, what I'm going to do is turn all of these, each individual room is going to stream in. That's going to be the idea. So, like I said, in UDK, I actually have some really old maps where the whole world is present, and I am streaming them in. But like I said, the problem is that with the lighting and everything just being just totally inconsistent between all the different things, it was just a nightmare, and I'm expecting not to see that. So visually I'm expecting a very uniform world in UE4, and also the only way I could get AI here was to rely on a programmer, and it's tough to rely on somebody else, because if they're not as active as you, it's just everything falters, you know. I couldn't get any other programmers. I posted, hey, I need a programmer. Nobody came forth. Obviously I didn't advertise it everywhere, but again, you know, if you guys have been watching my videos, you know, I got, you know, we got EQS, we got dynamic nav mesh, we got blueprints #1, right? So there's going to be tons of, you know, stuff that I can do. I am going to be looking for a C++ programmer. I need, I've mentioned this in another video, I need somebody that can take what is laid out in like a blueprint and convert that to C++. And if that person can just do that, I will partner up with them. If they want to, if they can write better stuff, just straight, you know, in code, if you're a raw C++ programmer and you feel like you can help me, you know, I'll partner with you. And by partner, I don't just mean, hey, you know, come help me and you don't get anything for it. I mean partner, like sharing the profits and everything if the game does well. So contact me if you're interested in joining me on the project. If nobody joins me, I'm going to do it in Blueprint, and then I am going to steadily convert everything to C++ myself, because it's not that I don't understand C++, it's just I don't really know the syntax, and for me personally, it's a slower it's a slower working environment because I'm going to have to sit there and struggle through all of that, you know, figuring out, hey, how do you define this and how do you access that, and what's the, you know, what's the typo here. The one nice thing about blueprints is that you can have errors in your logic, but you can't really have too many typos. You can have node typos, which is what I call them, where you've hooked up the wrong node to the wrong thing, but it's not going to be like, you know, something where you're getting all these errors and you just got to go in and you spend, you know, 30 minutes trying to figure out, you know, where did you screw up the bracket or the semicolon kind of thing. So that's what I'm doing here. I also have a bump offset master here, which is a much more basic material. Okay, simple parameters for these three values, and I have a bump offset here. Again, the ability to tile it, same ability, and I simply have a height texture which uses the alpha channel. So I'm only going to use this if I need. I don't use this very often. I only use it on a few things. There's only maybe like about 4 surfaces in my entire game that actually are bump offsetted for parallax, and then you just give yourself a parameter for the height ratio, and that's it. Again, parameter. You know, just make sure, you know, if you're going to try to make a master material for stuff, make things parameters. And there's nothing stopping you from throwing bump offset right here for everything if you wanted to. But again, if the vast majority of your materials, you're going to have 1,000 materials and 950 of them are not going to have bump offset, don't include that in the code. There's no point. Just make a separate one for those extra 50 materials, and cut out all the things you don't need. And again, like I said, you don't need to use this on everything. This is just if something does fall within that standard category and you really don't need much. Now, if you have a material, you know, requirement that's way less complicated than this, then use that, you know. Give yourself like a, you know, maybe call it a super simple, you know, M super simple or something like that, where it's literally just diffuse parameter and a normal parameter, and then the three scalars for the metallic, or 2 scalars for metallic and roughness. Don't even bother with specular, you know. Don't bother with any of the other stuff. So hopefully you guys found that useful in terms of that, and found the info I had on R.A.T.S kind of exciting, because I think it's going to be pretty exciting once it starts working again with the dynamic Hey, what are you doing? The dynamic global illumination here. You see the room just, you know, as I pass the sun across the window and stuff, I'm hoping that it just lights up the whole room. Again, I'm hoping that they fix some of this stuff here for the bleeding. If not, worst case scenario, I'm just going to use ambient cube maps and things like that to control everything. So that's it. Hip-Pause signing off. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon. Oh, and one last thing. I do have a bunch of other videos that are getting ready to go up. That 92FS that I was painting in Substance Painter is actually finished, and I know I left it at part 1, but the video series got kind of long, so I wasn't sure if I was just gonna just take it and speed it up to music. I think I'm gonna do that, because I don't think that there's much more I really needed to say about it. I'll just show it get finished and speed run. I have a video series already recorded for World Machine to UE4. That was something that was requested, so that's actually finished, and I just need to basically get that up, kind of look through it real quick, make sure there isn't anything that I need to cut out or anything weird like that, which I don't remember anything that needed to be cut out. So for the most part, it's going to be a straight upload, but I like to watch them before I upload. And I think that's it. I will be doing more videos, a lot more videos as I come up, but you can expect to see, for the most part, moving forward, it's going to shift a little bit away from tutorials and move more towards progress updates on R.A.T.S. As you can see here, it's really early. I've just started, but I got all this stuff done in really about an hour and a half. I mean, I didn't really spend that much time doing it. All I've been doing is I've been going in and I've been saying, hey, let me get this object and export it to an FBX, and then come over here and import it, and then just drag it. And here's a nice thing. Check this out. If I look at the position 2598.95, 2598.95, so I actually can copy and paste everything here. Just copy and paste the positions. So what I'll end up with in UE4 is going to be literally identical, 100% identical to what you see here, but hopefully with much better rendering. Now something like this with the hangers, I'm not going to go and copy and paste every single one, right? I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to put one on here and then dupe it down the line. So that kind of thing I don't care about. But I mean, I do have quite a bit of work ahead of me in terms of just all the exports and setting up all the materials and stuff like that, but it's going to be pretty quick. I certainly don't have to remodel everything, you know, which is nice. And certain things here, like the materials here with the extra UV channel, because this is all one material, and I use masking to get all the different surfaces. I was actually able to pull that exact same thing off in UE4. It's all one material, LARPing with the second UV channel. So yeah, that's the update on R.A.T.S, and just a little quick tip and a bit of a schedule for what's coming soon within the next couple of days, I'd say. So this is R.A.T.S signing off. Thanks for watching.